world. The US is the leading exporter of it, though we actually only produce about 1% of the global supply. From a nutritional standpoint, brown rice is by far the best, but it has one flaw. The essential oil in the germ is very susceptible to oxidation and soon goes rancid. As a result, brown rice has a shelf life of only about 6 months from the date of purchase, unless given special packaging or storage. Freezing or refrigeration will greatly extend this. It's possible to purchase brown rice from long-term food suppliers already specifically packaged in airtight containers with an inert nitrogen atmosphere, or you can do it yourself. In this kind of packaging, if properly done, the storage life can be extended for several years. 2. Popcorn. Popcorn is one form of a whole grain available to nearly everyone in the US if they know where to look. It's so popular as a snack food, particularly in movie theaters and events like fairs and ball games, that even the smallest of towns will generally have at least one business selling it in 25 or 50-pound bags. Since it's meant to be eaten, it's safe for food. To be at its most poppable, this corn needs to have a moisture content between 13.5% and 15.5%, which makes it just a little too moist for ideal storage. A small amount of drying will need to be done before it's packed. If wanted for popping later, it can always be rehydrated by sprinkling a tablespoon of water per quart of kernels, shaking vigorously and allowing it to be absorbed for a day or two. If you still get too many old maids or unpopped kernels, then repeat the process once more. Popcorn is harder than other varieties of corn, so if your mill is not of the heavy-duty sort, you may want to consider cracking the popcorn into coarse pieces first, then grinding it into a finer textured meal. 3. Pasta. It's very nutritious, easy to pack, and has a great shelf life. You can eat it simple or combine it with many other food, like canned vegetables, meat, or milk. It's your choice. Some pasta sauce would be useful too. 4. Canned vegetables, soybeans. An entire university could be founded on the culinary and industrial uses of the soybean. It's by far the legume with the highest protein content in commercial production, as well as being the other legume oilseed alongside the peanut. The beans themselves are small and round with a multitude of different shades. Because of their high oil content, they are more sensitive to oxygen exposure than other legumes, and precautions should be taken accordingly if they're to be kept for more than a year in storage. Although the US grows a very large percentage of the global supply, we consume virtually none of them directly. Most of them go into cattle feed or are used by industry or exported. What does get eaten directly has usually been processed in some fashion. Soybean products range from tofu to tempeh to textured vegetable protein, TVP, and hundreds of other uses. They don't lend themselves well to just being boiled until done and eaten the way other beans and peas do. For this reason, if you plan on keeping some as a part of your storage program, and you should, you'd be well served to begin to learn how to process and prepare them now when you're not under pressure to produce. 5. Peanuts. The peanut, commonly known outside the US as a groundnut, is not actually a nut at all, but a legume. They are another odd species, not much like the more familiar beans and peas. Whatever their classification, peanuts are certainly not unfamiliar to US eaters. Peanuts have high protein percentage and even more fat. They are one of 2 legume species commonly grown for oilseed in this country and are also used for peanut butter and boiled or roasted peanuts. Many Central and South American, African, and Chinese dishes incorporate peanuts, so they're useful for much more than just a snack food or cooking oil. 6. Canned milks. These are commonly called UHT milks, ultra high temperature, for the packaging technique used to put them up. They come in the same varieties as fresh liquid milks, whole, 2%, 1%, and skim. In the US, they have vitamin D added. The lesser fat content milks do not keep as long as whole milk, and their use-by dates are correspondingly shorter term. This milk is packaged in aseptic containers, either cans or laminated paper cartons. It has the same composition as fresh milk of the same type and can be stored at room temperature because of the special pasteurizing process used. The milk has a boiled flavor, but much less than evaporated milk. The dates are usually for approximately 6 months. The milk is still usable past its date, but the flavor soon begins to go stale and the cream separates. 7. Honey. Honey is probably the oldest sweetener known to man. Its use predates recorded history and has been found in the Egyptian pyramids. It's typically sweeter than granulated sugar by a factor of 25 to 40%, depending upon the specific flowers from which the bees gather their nectar. This means a smaller amount of honey can give the same amount of sweetening as sugar. The source flowers also dictate the flavor and the color of the sweetener as well. Honey color can range from very dark, nearly black, to almost colorless. As a general rule, the lighter the color and the more delicate the flavor, the greater the price the honey will bring. As you might expect, since honey is sweeter than table sugar, it also has more calories as well, 22 per teaspoon compared to granulated sugar's 16 per teaspoon. There are also trivial amounts of minerals and vitamins in the bee product, while white sugar has none of that. Honey is much easier to store than to select and buy. Pure honey won't mold, but may crystallize over time. Exposure to air and moisture can cause color to darken and flavor to intensify, and may speed crystallization as well. Comb honey doesn't store as well as liquid honey, so you should not expect it to last as long. Storage temperature is not as important for honey, but it should be kept from freezing and not exposed to high temperatures if possible. Either extreme can cause crystallization, and heat may cause flavor to strengthen undesirably. Filtered liquid honey will last the longest in storage. Storage containers should be opaque, airtight, moisture, and odor-proof. Like any other stored food, honey should be rotated through the storage cycle and replaced with fresh product. If crystallization does occur, honey can be reliquefied by placing the container in a larger container of hot water until it's melted. Avoid storing honey near heat sources, and if using plastic pails, don't keep it near petroleum products, including gasoline and diesel engines, chemicals, or any other odor-producing products. 8. Baking soda. This gritty powder is sodium bicarbonate, also called sodium acid bicarbonate, NaHCO3, a mild alkali. It's used in baking to leaven bread and other baked or fried foods, and does so in the same manner as baking powder. It can also be used to make hominy. When combined with an acid ingredient, the bicarbonate reacts to give off carbon dioxide bubbles, which causes the baked goods to rise. If kept well sealed in an air and moisture-proof container, its storage life is indefinite. If kept in the cardboard box it usually comes in, it'll keep for about 18 months. Do keep in mind that baking soda is a wonderful odor absorber. If you don't want your baked goods tasting of whatever smells it absorbed, then keeping it in an upright container is an excellent idea. 9. Salt. Storage life for salt is indefinite, so as long as you don't let it get contaminated with dirt or whatever, it'll never go bad. Over time, iodized salt may turn yellow, but this is harmless and may still be used. Salt is rather hygroscopic and will absorb moisture from the air if not sealed in an airtight container. If it does absorb moisture and cakes up, it can be dried in the oven and then broken up with no harm done. All salt, however, is not the same. Salt comes in a number of different varieties, and very little of what is produced in the US is intended for use in food. The rest of it, about 98%, has other uses. Therefore, it's important to be certain the salt you have is intended for human consumption. 10. Cooking oil. If obtaining the maximum shelf life in your cooking oils is important to you, it's possible to add antioxidant preservatives to the fat after you have purchased it. Used in conjunction with a gas impermeable container, either opaque in color or stored in a dark place, and cool storage temperatures of 70 degrees Fahrenheit or less, shelf life can be extended to about 5 years, possibly longer. 11. Sugar. All granulated sugars have basically the same storage requirements. They need to be kept in airtight, insect and moisture-proof containers. For powdered and granulated sugar, you might want to consider using some dissecant on the storage container if your local climate is damp. Since brown sugars and raw sugars are supposed to be moist, they do not need those. Shelf life is indefinite if kept dry, but anything that you intend to eat really should be rotated over time. Time has a way of affecting even the most durable of foods. 12. Wheat. Wheat comes in a number of different varieties. Each variety is more suitable for some purposes based on its characteristics. The most common classifications for its varieties are spring or winter, hard or soft, red or white. The hard red varieties, either spring or winter, are the most commonly stored because of their high protein and should have no less than 12%. The hard white spring wheats are still relatively new and are not yet as widespread. They have the same excellent storage characteristics as the hard red wheats. 13. Barley. Barley is thought by some to be the first grain ever grown by man. It has short, stubby kernels with a hull that is difficult to remove. Excluding barley intended for malting or animal feed, most of this grain is consumed by humans in two forms. Most common is the white, highly processed pearl barley, with much of its bran and germ milled off along with its hull. It is the least nutritious form of barley. The second offering is called pot or hulled barley, and it's been subjected to the same milling process as pearled, but with fewer trips through the polisher. Because of this, it retains more of the nutritious germ and bran. Unless you're prepared to try and get the hulls off, I don't recommend buying unhulled barley. Although it can be milled into flour, its low gluten content will not make a good loaf of raised bread. It can be combined with other flours that do have sufficient gluten to make leavened bread or used in flatbread. Barley flour